anywhere. However, the trends I've documented are not just a danger to public safety. They're a threat to democracy itself. I was in Turkey last year, traveling with a group of journalists from prestigious media outlets like the New York Times and BBC. We were there in between two large terrorist attacks, and tensions were high. Some journalists had considered not coming because of the risk. Turkey is ranked one of the most dangerous places in the world to be a journalist right now. While there, we were invited to meet with the leadership of the Institute of Strategic Thinking, the think tank closely tied to President Erdogan. Their presentation was full of language about democracy, freedom, and human rights. So during the question period, I asked how they can reconcile those beliefs with the fact that their president is consolidating power, imprisoning hundreds of journalists, and prosecuting anyone who dares to speak against him. I said that in my reporting, I found that 3 behaviors define any government that is at best authoritarian and at worst fascist. Persecution of immigrants and refugees, repression of dissidents, and direct attacks on the free press. All of those were happening in Turkey daily. So at what point, I asked, is Turkey no longer a democracy? They laughed quite awkwardly after my question, and then repeated their talking points and simply did not answer. I noticed one of the executives on his phone, and moments later, men in suits filed into the room and lined up behind me, standing against the walls. One of them asked for my business card. The reason I'm telling you all this is that even in moments like this, I never felt truly afraid in Turkey. Even after we learned that the newsroom we were scheduled to meet with that morning had been attacked. Even after I met with the underground press and heard their fears, even as I saw more and more evidence that Turkey has clearly become a dictatorship, I knew that I had the privilege of being an American. And then I came home to the rise of Trump, a man who white supremacists say is, quote, setting them free. Ever since, I have felt like a foreign correspondent in my own country. Trump has thrived on anti-immigrant and anti-refugee rhetoric. Meanwhile, fascist groups like Identity Europa, the Proud Boys, Lion Guard, and others have been emboldened. And this is just the beginning of his presidency. For the first time in 27 years, Human Rights Watch has listed the United States as a global threat. The annual Democracy Index listed the U.S. as at risk. And remember, most Americans have no idea about the scope of what is already taking place. Those 3 basic elements I mentioned in Turkey have been growing in the United States over decades and institutionalized across both Democratic and Republican administrations. Now, all of this has been inherited by an authoritarian. I didn't feel personal danger in Turkey. I feel it at home now. I've become obsessed with past eras of government repression and how journalists responded. I found that in history books, the darkest periods are clearly visible. Restraint and reason have a way of surfacing with distance and time. But at the time, it's never so easy. During the rise of the Third Reich, major outlets like the New York Times called Hitler a popular idol. They assured readers that, quote, his anti-Semitism was not so genuine or violent as it sounded. Newsweek and others compared him to Charlie Chaplin, the comedian. He wasn't a threat. He was a joke. Similarly, Mussolini was praised for revitalizing the economy with his fascist experiment. I realize that any comparisons to these eras of history are often seen as a gross exaggeration, as low-hanging fruit. But when you study that history, the parallels are just chilling. Hitler published a list of crimes by Jews to demonize them. Trump has just created a department to track and publish crimes by immigrants. Fascists called critical journalism Lügenpresse, or lying press. Trump and his supporters have used the same and also called us the enemy of the people. As I study how journalists responded in these darkest eras, I am terrified. I'm terrified that if we can miss something so unimaginably oppressive, what else might we also not see? Democracy requires constant vigilance, and I fear that we have all been asleep on our shared watch. Every day grows harder to recognize my own country. I keep thinking about those weeks in Turkey, and then I see that Trump has welcomed Erdogan in the White House. And Erdogan's private security forces in suits are beating American protesters in Washington, D.C. Through all of this, Trump has been the master of obfuscation and manipulation. Anything critical is fake news. His supporters aren't white supremacists, they are the alt-right. Journalists who challenge him are not doing their job. They're the enemy of the people. He officially declared his inauguration day the National Day of Patriotic Devotion. I have no idea what's going to happen next. But I know that until we all shed this sense of exceptionalism we have worn, the belief that true repression can only take place over there in some other country, we are all vulnerable.